Coming up on the Authorpreneur podcast.
The idea of Atticus kind of came about when I was really looking at the phrase book writing software. You know, people talk about book writing software, and, you know, I started asking myself, what exactly is it?
Welcome to the Authorpreneur podcast. I'm your host, mystery author Amelia D. Hay. On this podcast, I will bring you writing, book marketing, and self-publishing advice so that you can create your dream author business, build your author platform, and be creatively independent. You can find the episode show notes and lots more information on the podcast page at authorpreneurpodcast.com/podcast. Hello, writers. In previous podcast episodes, I've mentioned that I want this podcast to be free of interviews unless they are about how an author writes, outlines, or writes without an outline. Today, I'm making an exception with this bonus interview because I believe the discussion will benefit you even if you're in the planning stages of writing your first novel. As you can guess from the title of this show, I chat with Dave Chesson from Kindlepreneur on writing, editing, formatting and collaborating with Atticus. For those of you who don't know, Atticus is a brand new all-in-one writing software for writers launched at the end of 2021. That's when the reviews of the software first launched, and that's when I sort of started reading the reviews. One of the many things I like about Atticus is that the developers are making updates all the time, and these updates are free after the initial purchase of the program. And they also have a calendar which is called an Atticus Roadmap available where you can see certain features are due to be rolled out. And what this roadmap lists, it'll list the things that that are already available now and things that they predict or things that they are working on in the future. There's no actual hard deadlines on this map. It's just a list of upcoming features. Before we get into this interview, here's a bit about Dave Chesson. Dave Chesson is a military veteran, husband, and father of 3. But when he's not doing dad things, he's an avid book marketer. Dave works in publishing and book marketing and has been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Ally, which is short for the Alliance of Independent Authors, Huffington Post, and Market Watch. And he's been blessed to have worked with many New York Times bestselling authors in multiple genres and topics like Ted Dekker, Orson Scott Card, Kevin J. Anderson, and more. He has been a paid consultant to major publishing companies, helping with digital sales, advertising methods, and sales page optimizations. On his website, kindlepreneur.com, you can find some fantastic apps, including the Amazon Book Sales Calculator, Book Description Generator, which I've used and love, and the QR Code Generator. But he's best known as the creator of Publisher Rocket, which was previously branded as KDP Rocket and now Atticus. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. So I've got Dave on the Authorpreneur podcast to talk about his new program, Atticus. I believe I started seeing reviews for the product in 2021.
Yeah, that was about, yep.
It took me a while to purchase the program and download, but when I did, I sort of got what the fuss was all about, because it's almost like it's like you've taken Scrivener, Vellum, and Google Docs and put them into this one thing. For me, it's a bit mind-blowing, because I think what Google do with Google Docs is quite complicated. To have 2 people like sitting in the same program using it at the same time in real time.
Absolutely.
I know how complicated something like that can be, because my husband works for Google Android, so I do hear a bit of the chat, and he does talk about Google Docs quite a bit because they use their own products, obviously.
Yeah, you know, the idea of Atticus kind of came about when I was really looking at the phrase book writing software. You know, people talk about book writing software, and, you know, I started asking myself, what exactly is it? Book writing software isn't just the ability to write. I wouldn't consider Word document a book writing software. I think it's a writing software, but it's not books. Because when we write a book, we have to plan, we have to outline, we have to write. We then have to collaborate with our editors or with our art team and get feedback on the book. And then we have to format it so that it turns into either an ebook or a PDF paperback, right?
Yeah.
So the true nature of the phrase book writing software is one that goes through all those steps. And as an author, there wasn't anything that does that. What I wanted was to have one place. So
Yeah.
instead of having to pay for a plotting software, a writing software, and then a crazy amount of back and forth with editors, and then pay for a formatting software, wouldn't it be nice if there was just one where I could do everything from within it? And what this would help me out as an author was, A, it would cut costs because then I don't have to pay for all the software. B, I don't have to learn 4 different sets of software.
Mm-hmm.
And C, the most important thing to me is version control. Okay.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that when I would write, I used to write in Scrivener, and then I'd export it into Word, and then I'd email it back and forth with my editor. And the funny thing is, I always found that I never got rid, or deleted an old copy. And so by the time that I was done with the editor, emailing the latest version and saving it, and that forth, I would have 7 or 8 different Word documents on my desktop or in a file that said final copy, final copy, final copy. This is the final copy, all caps final copy. And then, hopefully I said something that was like the coup de grace, the top of it, that was final edited copy, use this one, and so I used to run into that. And one time in my entire writing process, I actually formatted the wrong one. I misread whatever naming system I had, and I thought this other one was it. And I hadn't had it formatted, and then I uploaded it to Amazon, and then I found out, oh my goodness, the final couple of chapters had not been edited, and there were some problems. And I then realized what the problem was, which was I used the wrong one. Another problem that I've had too is that I've gone back to update a book. Okay, so I published a book. It was time. It was 4 or 5 years later. I wanted to update it with new information, spruce it up, give it a better cover. And I first off struggled to figure out which one was the final copy, because for some reason I never got rid of all the old ones. And on top of that too, because I had paid somebody to format it, I had to pay somebody to reformat it again after I made the changes. And that's kind of the thing, is that, whether you're using Vellum to format or whatever, you're still going to have to re-upload the Word document. You're going to have to do all that formatting changes. And so I hated that. I wish that it was all just there. I wish I could just go to the book inside the software, click on it, make the subtle changes, add a chapter, or, do some deletion, correct some spelling errors that the reviews left. And then just hit export, and it's good to go, because everything is preset in that. So all of those pain points were the things that drove me to say, man, wouldn't it be nice if there was actually software that did all that? So we started by focusing on just the formatting. And I like to break this down into 3 areas. There's writing, collaboration, and formatting. Okay. And so we started by focusing on formatting. And the reason for that is, at the time, there was really only one effective and efficient formatting software, and that was Vellum.
Yeah.
Okay. There are other options out there, but they're a lot more complicated, or they don't give you a preview. You can't see it before. They were limited in their capabilities. Many of them won't allow you to do full bleed images or, stylized themes and things like that. Right. But Vellum, to an extent, does.
Yeah.
The problem about Vellum is they're really expensive. And on top of that, they only work for Macintosh. They do not work for PCs. So half of the writer community can't even use it.
Mm-hmm.
And they love that software so much that people were paying a service called Mac and Clouds just to be able to use Vellum on their PC. Or, as some people say, they go and buy an old Macintosh just to run the program. So we said, you know what? I think we can fix that. So we made it that Atticus works on all computers, not just Mac. And we also made it over $100 cheaper than Vellum as well. And that gives people lifetime.
I like the fact that this works on Google Chromebook, because there's not anything that works on that.
Right. And that's a big thing too, because Chromebook is so great for writing on. And it's a major part of a lot of authors' system. People
and
don't
it's
want to
also
buy,
cheap too.
Exactly. And so it's light, it's cheap, it's streamlined, it's great for going out and writing. And
Yeah.
Before this, a lot of the Chromebook users were completely, out of luck. So,
Hmm.
so we started with that. And there is a lot more that I want to do in formatting because I think there's a lot of incredible capabilities that Vellum's never touched. No other, the only way you can make these really cool things was to become like an InDesign pro. Well, we've got ideas on how to improve that. But
Yeah.
while we continue to work and add on the formatting, we also added the writing component too. So you can write your book in Atticus, and you can do a lot of the same things that you're used to doing in the writing component. And then when you're ready, you just click the formatting button and you start formatting it. So think of it like like Word, but a little bit better and more focused for authors, where you can move chapters around like we're used to in Scrivener, and then tacked on with like a Vellum. I wouldn't say we're at Scrivener level, and I'm going to get it there though, because there's a lot of features in the writing area that I want to add before I'd say we're like Scrivener. We're getting there, and we will beat them in capabilities though.
Scrivener has so many features. I probably only use 10%.
You
I
know,
use
and
the
that
snapshots a lot.
So that is actually one of the key things that we're focusing on when it comes to Scrivener. And by the way, I've used Scrivener since 2007, about when they first came out.
Oh,
I
wow.
used them to write my master's thesis. I worked for Apple at the time, and that's when they would give us free software. I was like, oh, cool, I'm working on my thesis, so I'll use this writing software. Um, and here's the funny thing. Out of those, 15 years of using them, it was like 7 years ago that I'm like, maybe I should actually start to learn how to use all of the parts. It's not exactly intuitive. And so then I paid some for like $200 for a Scrivener course. And for those who don't know, Scrivener's like $50. I
Yeah.
paid $200 just to learn how to use the program. And what I realized is I still, like you, probably only use 10 to 20% of the features. And the reason for that is that most of the features I don't think are as necessary, but I also have to memorize how to find things. And I think that's their biggest problem. They hide so many things under icons that I can't remember what it is, or
Yeah.
under like 3 or 4 levels, of menu bars, and I just forget. And so I believe that Scrivener is complicated. It's so complicated that I would be willing to pay $200 to learn how to use the software that I paid $50 to get. And if that isn't a testament, I don't know what is.
I think we've purchased the same course. It's quite a good course, too. I haven't watched it from beginning to end, but I use it as a reference material. So I'll go, how do I do this? And 90% of the time I'll end up at the course end because Google won't have the right answer.
Right. And that's the thing. I think that they've designed, like, I think Scrivener is was designed in a way where I just don't think it's intuitive. When I design software, I actually have two phrases that I love to use with my programmers, and it's called click click and it's called brain calories. Okay. What click click means, and maybe I can be more serious one day and I'll come up with a really cool name, but I'm going to stick with my fun one, click click. And they all know this. Click click means if there is something that is a feature that we think people will actually use, do not make them have to click more than twice to get it.
Yeah, I do
Right?
agree with that
If they
because,
have to click more than twice, then people have to start memorizing how to do it or where it is, and that's not cool. Then people just won't use it, or they have to pay hundreds of dollars to get a course to learn where everything is and how to use it. The second one, which is called brain calories, also goes along with this. If I have to spend just a little bit more thinking about something to figure it out, then I just wasted brain calories. So, for example, my programmers once sent me a whole bunch of these icons. They were like, oh, we're going to use icons because they're beautiful. And I'm like, cool. And then I started looking at the icon. I'm like, okay, there's a picture. It looks like a person. I see the head and its shoulders, right? I guess that's the profile. Well, yeah, that's the profile. I'm like, okay, so what icon are you going to use when you do character cards? They're like, well, I was like, okay. And then I started looking at some of the other icons. And it's like when they told me what it is, I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. But I didn't naturally think that. Which means that if
yeah,
I want to remember where things, like I'm going to have to remember where things are. I'm going to have to waste brain calories trying to figure this out. So I then said, I was like, nope, get rid of the icons on this section. But there was a section where it was perfect to use the icons. And I said, but I want you to make it that if I hover over the icons, then a pop-up box shows up to say the names. So then I don't have to think about it.
I think these mistakes are made when people value beautification of a software over functionality. And you can tell when they do that. They've tried to pack all these features together, and then they've gone, how do we make this pretty? And then the designer has taken over, and the designer doesn't use the software.
No. And they don't think about that. They're looking for beauty, and I'm trying to look for functionality and ease of use. So like when I'm working with my team, I'm constantly saying click, and brain calories, mainly brain calories, because I think they know better than hiding it behind 2 clicks. But brain calories, I'm constantly like, I had to think about that for a bit. So that's a big part of what we do. And that's why I think that we can surpass Scrivener, because that's one area that they really haven't done well on. Okay, so like I said, we've done the formatting and we've done the writing component. One of the areas that we're going to be using creating very soon is that collaboration component. Okay, and in collaboration, so you can write your book and then you can send a link to your editor who can then have editing rights that you can approve. And we're going to design the editing ability to look exactly like Word editing. And the reason why I'm doing that is because editors like Word. Most of them. Like that's their thing. And trying to teach an editor a new trick is a hard thing, especially in the trad pub area and some of the major professional editors. Like they do not want to learn a new software. So if we can make it look and feel just like Word, there's a couple of things that I want to change that will make it better, but we're also working with a whole bunch of editors, get their input to make it better.
Oh, wow.
They can do their editing, okay? And you as the author, without having to leave the software, can see them work on it and accept their changes or decline their changes or communicate with them right there about things, okay? And and then when you're done, and this is my favorite part, when they are done editing, you can remove their access with a click of a button. And now you don't have to worry about copies floating out there. You don't have to worry about, whether you're using the right version or the wrong version, and then at that point you can just start formatting and you never had to leave the software. And so that is going to be coming about. And the biggest thing that I will say is that when we're complete with this project, an author can do everything inside of it, would never have to leave it, and can create a book. And I honestly think that that will truly make us the only book writing software out there.
I think you're creating something different to Scrivener, because Scrivener is everything from writing a book to blogging to
manuscript,
writing a screenplay,
Yep.
short stories, plays. And what you're doing is obviously very different. Now that I've had a chance to listen to you talk, I'm just curious, mainly for my own curiosity. Do you have a background in computer science? Because I know you've got a lot of things on your website, and I know some of them are HTML based and all these other things. Like I have Publisher Rocket. I've used your HTML Amazon description thing.
Yep.
That works amazingly well. And I know you've got something else on your website as well. Like you got a lot of things, and I'm just, I guess, curious.
Actually, no, I don't have a background in programming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. So a long time ago when I created KDP Rocket, which is now called Publisher Rocket, but back then we called it KDP. I knew that this is something that authors needed. And so I luckily had some connections to programmers, and we were able to work together to create that. However, though, I learned this valuable lesson that one advanced programmer is like worth 50 average programmers. And I think actually Bill Gates once said that, so I can't take credit for that. And he's right. One advanced programmer truly is worth 50 average ones, and I got lucky. My first programmer was amazing. He was incredible. Wow. It's the reason why Rocket can do what it does. And it's also a reason why you don't see many imitators out there, because it was like an insane feat of just absolute intelligence what this guy did. But then after that, he moved on, to a different project, and I had a couple of average ones, and we just had a lot of problems. It was like constantly, it felt like whack-a-mole. We would add this feature and something would break, and then we'd fix that, and then something we fixed earlier will break. And so it was this problem. So I was like, man, this sucks. I got to figure this out. So what I did was I kind of jumped in the deep end, and I bought a 1/3 stake in a software development company. And I said, this way I will have absolute like understanding of all the inner workings of the business of software. And so I devoted years of studying and reading and kind of shadowing and asking questions of others that are in the business of software. And actually, I ended up taking over as CEO of the software development company, and implemented all these systems and structures. And that just like all of a sudden that software company just exploded. And
wow.
then about 8 months ago or so, I don't think I've ever made this public, but my software company got bought out from under me. And it was because a much bigger company was wanting to add software development, saw our systems, loved our people, and they came in with a valuation that was like stupid eye. And my other two partners were like, done, and I lost the vote. So,
no.
but luckily that company, they wanted to keep me happy is another way. And they really wanted me to work with them. And so what I did was I didn't become a member of the board because I didn't want to, but I have kind of a consultation component. So and also my CTO, my chief technical officer, is now the CTO of that company. And so him and I've worked with them, and I'm a part owner of them. I took stock options, and it's actually been a phenomenal thing because they found an incredible amount of talent, and it was because of that I was able to really build out the kind of team that I wanted for Atticus, and that we're able to do things that, I know the owner of Scrivener once said that if he could do it all over again, he wished he could do collaboration, but he can't. There's a reason why there was only Vellum. It's an incredible feat for programming. And luckily we've got an amazing team, and they're just knocking it out of the park. And it came down because of the combination of my old company and this new company. And yeah, so I would say I don't know anything I don't know any programming language at all. But I know a lot about the business of software, and I've got some incredible people that work for me that pick up on the parts I don't know.
Okay. So when you created Atticus, did you have an ideal user in mind? Or did you simply focus on solving, I guess, common writer problems that you were seeing?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of times when I make software, I make it for myself.
Okay, makes sense.
I mean, I'm an author and a writer, and I start with. I always tell people that the phrase that usually kickstarts a project is when I say something like, "Wouldn't it be nice if?" And so for me, it was, "Wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have to learn 4 different programs or pay for 4 different programs? Wouldn't it be nice if there was one software where I could absolutely write, collaborate, and format my books?" And so we really got that going. Now, one of the things that I am, like I said, the whole brain calorie thing, I mean it because I want my software to be as intuitive and easy to use. My grandmother, her name is Muzzy, and at least that's what I call her, my Muzz. I always call it, and I tell my team this, like, hey, it's got to be a Muzzy factor. Like, we need to make sure that my Muzzy could literally pick it up, and could probably start using it just by clicking around, or could really use it after watching our tutorials. And so Muzzy doesn't do Atticus anymore. She did Publisher Rocket back in the day, but she's she's up there in age. So, but I still use her name as my team rally cry. All right, we need this Muzzyable. So
that's quite funny. One of the things I did notice when I went to purchase Atticus is that it's cloud-based. It's not something that you download directly to a computer. What prompted you to go down the alley of cloud-based over a downloadable program?
Actually, it's both.
Really?
It's a progressive web app, which is the best of both worlds. So what a progressive web app is, which I honestly think is going to be the future of software, and I'll tell you why. It's sort of like a web browser on steroids. It's its own kind of browser, if you will.
Okay.
And so what it does is that for Atticus, you can either go to app.atticus.io and then log in and then do all the things you see, or you can click to download the PWA onto your computer, and it has an icon. It goes into your apps, and you can click there and open it up and start working as well. What's awesome about the PWA is so you get the things like it's a downloadable software, but you have also the access to the cloud as well. It also allows us to work on all computers. I mean, if there's any computer, any crazy operating system that has a web browser on it, which just about every computer does, it will absolutely work. And right now, you can also put it on your iPad because the PWA will download as an icon, as an iPad app, and same with your smartphone. That being said, though, I have not directed my team yet to reorganizing for a small phone. But in time, it will be. And so what that will allow anybody to do is you could literally be in the car, think of something, right? Oh, man, and then we're going to be doing a lot of voice to text capabilities in the future. But I envision that a person can click the button, record what they just thought of, and it will pop it right into their book. And then they shut down their phone. And when they get home to their computer, it's showing up right there, right? And I think that would be an absolute phenomenal capability for authors, because there are a lot of authors that just have, creativity strike at the oddest of moments. And I'd love for them to be able to just pop it in there. Or maybe they're sitting in line, waiting for the doctor's office, and they can just keep writing if they want to on their phone or their iPad. And then when they get home, it's on their computer, on the downloaded or on the browser if they pop it up. What's really cool too is that because of the PWA, you don't need internet for it. And that's why it's, like I said, it's like a browser on steroids. So if, say, for example, you're going to go off into the woods and you want to use Atticus, what you have to do is just make sure that you've been logged in, okay? That the app that you have on your computer, that you're logged into it. It doesn't log you out. So unless you've logged out, you're good to go. But I would just say open it and just check that you're there. And then at that point, go off into the woods, write as much as you want, okay? And you can also back it up, what you did, onto your computer if you want to, okay? So you can back up one of your books right there. So you have a backup copy in case something crazy happens. The only time that you will need internet is two situations. One is if you're going to drag a new Word document into Atticus, then in order for our system to crunch it, we just need to connect, because a lot of like the hard power of formatting and crunching is on a server somewhere. That way, you can run it on a small phone, you can run it on an old computer, no problem. It's not heavy because the heavy stuff is on a server. So if you drag and drop a Word document into it, you'll need internet for that, okay? But if you've already done that while you had internet, you can always access that book right on Atticus. The second time where you're going to need internet is when you click the format export button, right? So when you go to export your ebook or book, you're going to need internet connection for that, because again, the hard stuff is on the server. Now that shouldn't be too much of a problem, because if you really need to export, you probably need internet anyways, because you're probably going to have to upload it to KDP and you need internet for that. So I don't think that's going to cause any problems there. And the final one is when we have collaboration. In order to collaborate with somebody, you'll need internet for that.
Yeah.
I mean, they could still work on it. You just won't be able to see what they're doing because you don't have the internet access. But that's it.
Wow. I have to admit, when I first started using it, I didn't look at any of the tutorials. I did have a minor problem, but I blamed my internet connection for that. But I think it's just one of those things that does happen. I think I lost a bit of work at some stage, and I think it might have been, I think it was saving.
Okay.
It was during save, and I have a funny feeling it was because of my internet, because my internet kind of, it's not particularly great. We'll leave it there. Yeah.
We have some backups. So the cool part is we have a lot of backup systems on it. The good thing about the cloud is, like, say, for example, your computer breaks or you pour wine on it and it dies, we can always, like, all your work is saved. So that's like a really cool thing for authors. The other thing is that if you are, if you're working on something, and we have like some hard systems that literally say like, hey, just a heads up, but like, because there's no connection to the internet, we can't save this, right? So it's not going to show up on any of your other devices. And we have the ability for you to, if say for you want to, you can export onto your computer, you can save on your computer, right? But we make sure it's clear that, hey, our system hasn't backed this up because we don't have the internet, right? And so that's one of the things that we have. The other thing is that we have some more opportunities that are coming to address that. But like I said, for me, I'm traveling all the time, and most of the time I do my writing on an airplane. And so it was like hardcore for me. I was like, yeah, this system is not going to work if I can't work on it while on a plane.
Okay.
One of the things, and the reason why I think PWAs are going to be the future, by the way, and I think is really important, is because some of the issues that software companies are running into is problems with Apple and Amazon and Android fighting with each other. Okay.
Yeah.
Apple, I'm just going to put it this way. Apple's kind of being a jerk. And you can just look at all the lawsuits that are out there on what Apple's doing. But basically, Apple is making it that with every iteration of their operating systems, that it's harder and harder for software to work on a Macintosh without going through Macintosh's store, okay? The App Store, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why they're doing that is because if they put, like, if the only way people on a Mac can use it is to go through the store, then it means they have to buy the app through their store. Well, Apple requires that they get 30% of the sale. So Apple is making it harder and harder for software to exist without paying them 30%. And other companies are having problems where, like, Facebook got into a bit of a fight with, I think, like I said, all the big companies are fighting. There's a lot of issues, and having software that can effectively and efficiently work on all of them is getting harder and harder to do. But PWAs are a way to skirt around that, have no problems. And the best part is that we as programmers, like, when I add something to our system, I don't have to like add it for the Mac and then work to add it on the PC and then work to add it on the Android. What I get to do is we work on that hard server system that I talked about, and we just put it there, and bam, it works on every computer.
So it's one version, not 12.
Exactly. So people who are on one type don't have to sit around waiting until we get around to it. With Scrivener, right? They had Scrivener 3.0 for Mac, and that was 4 years ago. And then just last year, they finally came out with 3.0 for PC.
Yes, that was a long time coming. I have a Scrivener template, and I had quite a few people who use PC sort of say to me, this doesn't work. And I'm like, wow, I'm really embarrassed for them.
Right. You know, and that's the thing. Whereas anything that we do will work with Atticus, no matter what computer or what phone or what laptop they're on. Another great thing about this too is that my team is adding new features and capabilities twice a week. And what's awesome for Atticus users is that when you open it, so long as you have internet connection, it will all of a sudden just, maybe you'll see a circle and then it's done. Like, it's all the features are good. You don't have to check your latest update or, you know, what version you're on. You don't have to re-download anything. It's all just taken care of. So we can get out new features lickety split without any hassle to our users. And I personally love that. So those are a couple of reasons why we went with the PWA system, because I really think it's the future. It allows us to do things faster and better. It doesn't cause hassle. Authors don't have to worry about what version they're on, and they'll never have to worry about what computer or phone they're using and when they'll get that component. If we make a new feature, it works for everybody just like that.
Wow. Because it's a PWA, do you think it will be easier for Atticus to work with programs like Grammarly and ProWriting Aid?
Yes. So we already work with ProWriting Aid. We actually teamed up with them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and they were great to work with. They're also one of the reasons why I like them way better than Grammarly, but that was even before we worked with. Grammarly is a hot mess from a program side. If you've been using Grammarly, okay, and you've noticed that your web browser has slowed down or your Word document has shut down for some weird reason, a lot of that is the way that Grammarly was designed. Grammarly is
Oh.
aggressive in looking and analyzing everything on your computer, and because it does that, it will basically just it can overload your computer, especially like, for example, if you're someone like me where you have like 20 tabs open. Grammarly is analyzing all the words on all 20 of those tabs all at once, which is why, your Chrome or your Safari will just shut down.
Oh, I
And
have no idea.
yep. And so we tried to work with them on Atticus. And first off, they were kind of like, "Who are you?" And we don't care. And then the second thing was also too, when we were like, "Fine, we don't need to work with you. We'll figure out a way." We started looking at it, we're like, "Ooh, yeah, they really have to fix this code. This is not good." So I'm saying PDBA, all done. Awesome. They were great. We did, our two teams did a high five on that. Grammarly, I wouldn't hold up much hope on being able to work
Okay.
with them, but it doesn't mean we won't stop. But we are working with like Plotter as well. We hope that one day people can export and import their Plotter JSON file right into Atticus, and Atticus will put the stuff where it should be. We are teaming up with For the Words, as well as I think Word Anvil is the other one. We're in the preliminary discussions with them. We also did a really good team up with Bookbrush. And I love those guys. Bookbrush is kind of like Canva, but specifically for books. They specialize in helping to make advertisements as well. Like they can make
Yeah, I noticed
cool
with
stuff.
Bookbrush, they do a lot of stuff that you have to purchase add-ons for. If you do this kind of thing in Photoshop, you have to purchase an add-on to it, and it's super quick. Like,
Yeah.
because I have like a part-time sort of pre-made book cover design business, and I took it. I looked at Bookbrush, and I noticed that the way they do their 3D book cover images, it's very quick.
Yeah.
Whereas in Photoshop, you have to purchase I think it's an add-on, and if it breaks, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I was quite blown away. I was like, wow.
Yeah, and so with us with Bookbrush, one of the things, like, we have some really cool capabilities to make some awesome full bleed images in your book, or make a really awesome looking chapter theme, or also too, like, ornamental breaks. We allow authors to upload custom ornamental breaks to show up in their books. But again, going back to that, my favorite, the brain calories. When you're dealing with a book and you want to put a image in to make it full bleed on your book, you actually have to go through and figure out, okay, what trim size am I using? Okay, got it. And then you have to like calculate, the length and width of the image so that it's the right length and width for your trim size, so it looks good when you insert it. I was like, man, that sucks. Or also with the ornamental break too, like you have to figure out the exact dimensions for the ornamental break, or it will get squishy or look weird. So we went over to Bookbrush, and I was like, man, I would rather my team focus on adding more features for Atticus, and instead of trying to build some like image sizer slash graphics thing. And I was like, let's go to
Yeah.
Bookbrush. So I went over to them. I was like, hey guys, I tell you what, we'll send you over all the mathematical dimensions for all the trim sizes and everything like that, and you guys work on it. And they're like, done. So we now have a button in Atticus where you can click it, and then it's a special page on Bookbrush. And by the way, if you're not a member of Bookbrush, you can still get they've set it up that the 10 free images that you can use with them
Okay.
automatically. So then you go over there and they'll ask you, okay, so is this a full bleed image, just one, or is this a double page full bleed image? And they'll ask if it's ornamental break, and you select that, and then you select the trim size that you're going to choose, and all of a sudden it pops up with the perfect dimensions. Now you could just drag and drop your image, resize it perfectly, Or if it's a 2-pager, drag and drop your one image and it will split it perfectly. And now you just take those images and upload it right to the book and it looks perfect. And so that was one of those things that we were thinking about, like, how can we make this easier? Because trying to figure out those calculations and then resize it in Photoshop or Canva, like, that sucks.
I haven't
So they took care of it.
So this is really good. Like if you write middle grade fiction, this is a big thing in middle grade fiction, is that those first 2 pages of every chapter have this certain feel. And I've noticed there's nothing other than InDesign that could possibly create that. That's really interesting that you've created something for that market as well.
Yeah, nailed it. And it's super easy. Bookbrush did an amazing job. They're a phenomenal team. And now Atticus owners can immediately just go over there, get the right size image, perfect to look in their book, drop it in, and bam. It's an honestly, like a match made in heaven. I loved it. I was so jazzed about that.
I have to admit, I'm super jealous of all of these new programs that are out there, because even though I've only started publishing in 2019, I've been writing for a long time. And not having these programs has forced me to use Photoshop and a bunch of other things, because I couldn't afford to do my own covers. I couldn't afford to hire a graphic designer because they're really expensive, especially if you find someone that's good. So I had to figure it out myself. But I guess if I had these programs were around, I probably wouldn't have developed those skills. But I'm definitely still jelly.
That. I also have Photoshop. Luckily, I have the old Photoshop where I don't have to pay for the annual subscription. And right. So, I mean, it's like, I was like, got in on that. And they're like, oh, you want to upgrade? No, I don't want to upgrade. But then you don't get our new features. I don't need your new features. You know, it's good enough for me. So I still have Photoshop. And that's like the one thing that I'm like trying to do whatever I can to never lose. Because I don't think I would pay. I love using it. Because I do a lot with my website, you know, and creating images, and I'm like you. For the longest time, I've done Photoshop for like 10 years and learned by trial. And I'm not saying I'm great at it, but I'm good enough to get the things I want done. But I wouldn't pay the annual subscription for Photoshop. That's insane. It's
like $9.98. I think you get Lightroom. Never used it.
No.
I'm super jealous that you have that, actually.
I know, right?
Yeah,
I feel like that's like something I'm gonna pass on to my children. Like,
I feel like you've got a pet unicorn and only you have that.
Yes. It was the best thing. A long time ago, I bought the Students Edition, and it's a CS 5. Boom. Creative Suites 5. So I'm going to keep that until the day it won't let me. But in the meantime, though, I'm just like you. I forced myself to learn how to do Photoshop just to get around. And I do wish that some of these tools had been around, so it would have been way easier.
Yeah, especially Bookbrush. Because I have a funny feeling if you have a bit of graphic design knowledge, you probably could design a cover in there.
Yeah.
Are you planning on releasing new features in the future? And if so, what are you most excited about?
Oh, yeah, we got a lot of new features in the future. I mean, we actually make public the things that we're working on, as well as the upcoming things and the things we finished. If you just go to atticus.io/roadmap, and you can see a breakdown of what my guys are working on, what they just finished, what's coming up next. Yeah. Because we want our users to know. I think it's a great thing for people to see, is that we're not just one and done. Like we're hitting the gas and we're adding things. And one thing I will say to everybody out there is all of our new features and updates and upgrades and everything, they're all free. They're free for current owners. I personally hate it when software, improves itself and then it's like, okay, pay us again.
Yeah, like, that's a bit really.
Right. So all of that we're talking about is there. With regards to like a favorite, that's like trying to choose which one of your children is your favorite. No, I have my own personal ones that I wanted. Like we came out with this one capability. So this one happened, but just kind of show you like what my thought process is. One of the things we authors have to do, especially if you have multiple books, is that you have to update your back matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've published 8 books. If I come out with a 9th book, then I want to go back and update the back matter of my other 8 books so that it can talk about the latest book, especially in the also buy page, right? Well, in doing that, or let's say I want to update my bio or something, like in doing that, I'd have to go through all of my books and copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. And I just didn't like doing that. So what I did was I told my team, hey, let's make it where we can create a template page. Okay, so if I've already written this also buy page, right, and I've put in all the links, I've done all the things for all the books, instead of me having to copy and paste or have to redo it on every book, what if I could just turn that special page into a template? And then when I write my next book, I could just access that template, right? I don't have to rewrite my bio. I don't have to rewrite the also buy page or the dedication or any of those things. I can just bring in the templates. But what's even cooler is that if you go to make a change on a template, the program will then ask, hey, would you like me to automatically make that change to all the other books that use this template? And it lists those books. And then all you have to do is say yes. And then boom, all the books are updated. And I know it sounds dumb, but I was so giddy with that because I hate updating my books, and just making it where the program figured it out and just poof, there it is, was like, yes and amen.
You must not be a favorite person with book formatters because you're sort of making them obsolete, really.
Well, yes and no. One of the things, so when we talk about collaboration, actually, one of the ways you can collaborate, there's actually 4 ways you can collaborate, and each way has different permissions that you can give. I mean, the first is collaborating with another writer. So 2 writers can write the same book. Okay. There's that. Then there's collaborating with an editor, collaborating with an ARC review or a beta reader. So ARCs are advanced review copies, and betas are, and the difference between the two is betas are people who are reading your book as you're writing it and giving you tips and things to change. Advanced review copy readers are people where they read the completed book and they leave their thoughts, kind of either helping you make last minute changes, but most of the time you're trying to get an ARC reader to show up to then promote your book once you release it. But so you can do that. And then the final one is a formatter, because even though we've made it really easy, there will be authors where they're just like, I still want somebody to format it for me. Like I just don't want it. Like I can make a good book, but I want it to be really creative, and I'm just not creative. So can I bring in a formatter to make special chapter themes and images and full bleed images and do all that for me? And so we're going to make that available. And that way formatters, and the cool part is for the author, they don't have to export and send it over. They click, they send a link to that formatter can go in, they can change only the formatting components, make it look really cool. The author can watch them as they do it, or whenever the editor or the formatter says it's done, they can look at it and then communicate the things they want different. Like, oh, no, I don't like that. Like, that's a little too weird, or perfect, And then once they're done, just like with the editor, you can remove their access and they're good to go. So it won't eradicate the need for formatters. Instead, it might actually be a phenomenal marketplace for formatters to find jobs.
I guess I sort of take for granted that not everyone is as stubborn as I am. I'm determined to do a lot of things myself. Maybe it's eldest child syndrome. Like, I can do it myself. And obviously not everyone is like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
And the other thing too is that I know that there are a lot of teams out there. There's a publisher who has a go-to formatter. The software is going to make it ridiculously easy for these publishing companies to tag their formatter to come into the software and pop, good to go. And again, for publishing companies, it's going to be great because you don't have to worry about version control. You don't have to worry about, the wrong product being sent over. You can control everything from that point. So
I know you have touched on collaboration already, but how does the collaboration feature work in Atticus? Because prior to talking to you, I just understood that you could use it in a similar way to Google Docs, where it was 2 writers.
Yeah. So Well, you have the 4 capabilities, right? You can either
Yep.
collaborate with a writer, an editor, ARC, beta, and a formatter. The writer and formatter have to own Atticus in order to do it. So both writers
Okay.
have to own Atticus, and the writer and the formatter, they both have to own Atticus. We can't make like the free version for that one. So in order to use your formatter to do it, the formatter has to own it because they're just special capabilities, right? And so in this case, what you would do is that if you're working with a writer or formatter, you would click on collaboration, and then you would type in the email address of the person. You can choose certain permissions that you give them on what they can and can't do, and then send it over to them. And when that happens and they click and accept it, that your book will show up in their dashboard of Atticus, but only with the permissions you gave them. So when they click it, if they're a formatter, they'll only see the formatting page. They can't see your writing section. They can't see your notes. They can only see it as a formatting component, and they can get to work on it and then let you know when they're done. With writers, it's the same thing, where one writer will send the invite to another. We are setting it up that one will be kind of the leader, and that's something that if you talk to anybody who co-writes, you should always have one that is the leader or the trump card to it. They make the final decision. It just works way better that way. And so then what we do is that, so you can write just like, it will look like Google Docs. Okay. If you're writing on different chapters, you could always just click on the chapter and watch as they write it, just like on Google Docs. And we're also setting it up too, that if one of the writers needs to travel and won't have internet, then all they need to do is lock the chapter. Okay. And they can lock it so that there's no chance that the other author might be writing in a chapter that the other person's also writing in, right? That hasn't synced up. And so that we've got a lot of fail-safe systems for that kind of component. With regards to editors and ARC team readers, they don't need to own Atticus. Instead, they get this email with a link. They click the link, and it will ask them to create a free account in Atticus, and they will see your book in the dashboard. And when they click on it, like I said, it will look like Word document. It will open up like it looks like Word. And so they can access this on their computer. They can access this on their iPad, their Chromebook, wherever they want to, and they can start making their changes. But on your Atticus, you'll see them make those changes.
Okay, so with beta readers, can they make inline comments and stuff like that?
Yep, and also with beta readers too, you can make it, or once we come out with this, we intend to make it where you can also choose if the beta readers can see what the others wrote or not. And this is important because I have seen where a beta reader will put in a comment, and other beta readers might not have thought it was that bad, but because they see the comment, they think it is. And they're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden you get this cascading effect that makes you think, oh my goodness, I ruined this chapter. This is terrible. No, it's just one person. But they all picked up on it after they read the fact, right?
Yeah, there is a bit of a crowd mentality that you have to be very careful of with beta reading.
Exactly. And so what we can do is make it where only you can see the comments of all of them, and they can't see each other's comments. Right.
Okay.
And so that way it's a protective layer. I think it makes beta reading that much better, because right now, if you do beta reading over Google Docs, they can see everybody's. And that sucks.
Oh, so, I had no idea.
Yep. So all the comments will show up in the one spot, and you can read them. Whereas with Atticus, on the other hand, they won't know what the other people said. So now you'll really be able to say, you'll see all the comments on one spot yourself, but they won't see what the others have to say.
There are beta reading softwares out there, but you have to pay a pretty penny. And some of them are super expensive. And then when you see the product, they can't make inline comments. And you're like, I just paid £100 for nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, way back in the day, I'm like, man, I wish wouldn't it be nice if there was a software that did it all, and I didn't need to pay for all these things, and I can control everything from one spot. And that's exactly how it came about.
Just another question about the collaboration. So which of these features are available now? Or is the collaboration something that you're working on currently?
The collaboration is something that we're currently working on.
Okay.
It's sort of like we built the engine of the car. So we did the architecture of the software. with all of these capabilities in mind. So it's like the engine, the frame of the car is there. Right now we're putting in the seats, the steering wheel, and so that's kind of where it is. We don't have any crazy hardcore lifting, only because we designed it with this in mind.
Okay. I have actually, that wasn't the last question. I've got one more. Okay. So I understand that when you create products that eventually, once you start getting a lot of people using it, you'll start getting users asking for things. Mm-hmm. Do you get users asking for particular features?
We do. And we'll get in on support. We've got an incredible support team. But we also have a Facebook group as well on Atticus. And periodically our team will put up, because we have a public roadmap of all the things we do, but periodically we'll put a survey or a Facebook survey, if you will, to select which feature you want most so that we can prioritize things. So we really love the feedback. We communicate with our team. I mean, you may find that we might be the most responsive, communicative, I would say maybe writing software out there, if not in the book world, just because there's so many things that we're doing. Like I said, we're updating twice a week, with new features, capabilities, and improvements. Yeah. I mean, we're here for the community, so we're taking in the feedback.
One of the things I particularly love is that you can create your own formatting template. You can't do that anywhere else. Yep. There's a couple of exceptions to that, but the program's difficult to use. But I saw that and I was like, because I went through the templates and I was like, there's nothing really here that would suit mystery. And then I realized, I can create a template all of my own. And that's when I was like, oh my God, I think I need to talk to Dave about this. Because I was just like, at that point I realized what you had created, and I realized, wow, must have taken a lot of people. It must not have been just you.
Yeah, it is. It's 8 full-time programmers on the team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a big team. And on top of that too, what's really awesome about that template is you could design a special template for an entire series and use it on all of those books with a click of a button, or you can make subtle changes on your next series. But yeah, being able to design your own look and feel to a book, I thought was like critical to the software.
Yes. I think that's everything I wanted to ask you. So thank you for coming on to the Authorpreneur podcast and chatting with me about Atticus. It's really, really interesting, and I definitely look forward to seeing the features and where you go with Atticus in the future, because it's really exciting that we finally have something that's designed with writers in mind. It's quite great.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan.
Well, thank you. That really means a lot. Won't let you down. And as an author myself, I'm really jazzed about its future and its capabilities, and we're just going to keep hard charging.
Great. Well, all the best, and thank you for spending time to chat with me. Thanks.
Absolutely, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye. If you've heard something useful in this episode that was helpful to you and you'd like to support the show, then buy me a coffee for as little as $2 at buymeacoffee.com/author80hey. Thank you for listening or watching this episode of the Authorpreneur podcast, where I spoke with Dave Chesson about writing, editing, formatting, and collaborating with Atticus. I hope this interview answered a few questions you had and helped you to make a great purchasing decision. In the comments section below, let me know whether you have purchased and tried Atticus, or if you haven't purchased the writing software, what Atticus feature are you most interested in? Once again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Happy reading and writing, everybody!